So good morning, everybody. It's really such a pleasure and honor to be here, to be talking with you for the course of the day, and kudos to Maureen and John for having organized this very wonderful conference. Can we just give another big thank you? And what a totally inspirational setting, and what a completely inspirational bunch of people. So I'm really looking forward to our conversation, which will be ongoing today and certainly began with a bang last night. And that was just so much fun to be able to rock the boat together. So I think we have a lifetime of rocking the boat together in store for us, and I'm really looking forward to it. So I'll just dive right in, because I would love to use this time to just sort of begin this exploration that we're doing here today together. And I'm really anxious to be able to share with you why I am feeling so excited and encouraged and hopeful about where we are and what we're doing together right now in this moment of history. And partly I'm coming from the vantage point of having been a candidate for national office. And when you do that, you are kind of you're just a hostage to a process, and you are a public commodity. How many have run for office here? And I know, Dominic has been all right. So a number of people have run for office, and you know that when you do that, your job is to talk to people, above all to talk to people, and then to be part of a conversation, to be a listener, and to hear people. And when you're running for national office, or really when you're running for any office, your job is really to go to the hot spots. We have a predatory political system, unfortunately, that we're living under, and their job is to just serve their corporate masters and their financial sponsors. That's what they do. But in a real democracy, those of us who are really running for a reason, not for self-promotion or not to sort of perpetuate a predatory system and benefit from it, those who are really running because we believe in democracy, and we believe in owning our democracy and exercising our democracy. Our job is to really go to the hot spots and listen to the hot spots and help lift up the struggles for democracy and justice. And so I had kind of the dubious honor of doing that for a year and going all around the country. And I have to say, at my first experience, which was in a college in the Midwest at Western Illinois University, kind of a conservative Illinois university, rural, that had never been progressive. I was invited there because they were hosting a mock election together with Electoral College and representatives of all the presidential campaigns. And in that very first event, naturally I was the only candidate who actually showed up for it, because students are a real priority for anybody who's thinking about it. Students are our future. They're also in the target hairs of everything that's going wrong and carrying the burden. So, I was really excited to have a chance to go and kick off our campaign at a university. And I had my 5 minutes like all the other candidates. Most people there was an auditorium of, over 1,000 young rural Illinois students who had never thought about voting independently before. And I had a chance to sort of say what our priorities were, and to talk about the need for free public higher education, for forgiving student debt, for ending the wars and cutting the military budget and putting it into the things that we need here at home. And for most of them, it was the first time they'd ever heard a candidate talking like that. And the people who organized the mock election, they had a big map that was projected onto the front of the auditorium. And as the Electoral College came out with its results, each state was colored either blue or red. They didn't have anything else, because they assumed that there would be this token independent candidate, but everybody was thinking blue and red. So, the long and short of it was that we actually came in second, tying with the Republicans, and they had a need for all these green states, which were actually left blank on the map. And I was blown away, actually, to see how ready people were. Having heard all about Mitt Romney and Barack Obama for years, young people were ready to change their minds in 5 minutes. And it just brought home to me, again, what an incredible moment we're in, that people don't need to be persuaded that something is deeply wrong and that there could be a better way to do this. All people need really is to hear that they actually have an option that they can stand up for. And as John mentioned in my very first debate, where I didn't have a clue how to debate, and my biggest fear in running for office was that I would have to be in a debate. And we were pushing for open debates, and lo and behold, we actually got what we were asking for. It's like, watch what you wish for. And in the course of that debate, I was able to basically speak up for our agenda, for downsizing the military, for putting money into our schools, providing health care as a human right, for providing an education system that provides education as a human right, in fact, through college and including college. And there, having been treated during the debate like that point of view was absolute lunatic fringe, not even worthy of a rebuttal. In walking out from the debate, as I mentioned last night, I was mobbed by the press, who told me that I won the debate on the Instant Online Viewer poll. And it wasn't for being a great debater. It was for being able to say the things that everyday people are really holding in their hearts and are looking for something to rally around. So, to me, that was sort of like the beginning where the curtain was lifted from my eyes. I feel like we are all walking around with this sense that we're out there on the margins somehow, but we're actually not. We are actually speaking for the deeply held values of the American public. And in the words of Alice Walker, the biggest way we give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. In fact, there is a big scam going on out there. That scam is that, the 1%ers have the support of the American public, and certainly they do not. And we are the 99%, which is 99 times as many as they are. The one thing that they have money, and they have infrastructure that enables them to organize. And that's something that it's not easy to create, but it's not impossible either. And I find it just incredibly exciting that we are in a moment in history right now where we must succeed. We must succeed, and equally important, the uprising has begun. And that was really my insight, my takeaway from having touched down at hotspots all over the country, whether it was students fighting debt or people fighting homelessness and eviction, which was my first arrest in my life, and also in the campaign. I had the great honor to be arrested with my running mate Sherry Hunkela, standing up to Fannie Mae, who was evicting some families who were victims of predatory mortgages. That was a hot spot. The peace movement was a hot spot. The tar sands resistance was a hot spot. There were just so many innumerable hot spots all over the place. It just made me think, wow, there's so much momentum behind each of these issues. If we could manage to synchronize our resistance, there would be nobody left home, left sitting down. We would all be standing up together. And another really compelling moment for me, revealing moment, was 2 years ago during the Millions Against Monsanto protests. Do people remember that? When there were the big GMO protests all around the world. And this was a Facebook campaign. Over the course of about 3 weeks, word got out that there was going to be a big protest to Monsanto. It wasn't even civil disobedience. It wasn't anything that exerted major traction. It was just a lot of people standing up on one issue. And at the end of the day, it was like over 2 million people in over some 100 countries around the world. And what happened? You know, it was such a shock to see so many people standing up. Within 1 week, Monsanto announced they were giving up on GMOs in Europe, just from people getting out and standing up. And that too drove home to me, wow, if 2 million people would get out on the issue of food security and food sovereignty, how many would get out if we had a day for jobs, for decent wages, for ending the climate crisis, for creating a green energy system, for having a healthy food system, and for ending the wars and bringing the troops and our bases home? What if we all just synchronized our watches and all stood up together? And out of that, coming out of the campaign, I began to just sort of throw that idea out and see were other people kind of thinking about that too. And a year ago, at the Democracy Convention in Madison, Wisconsin, we actually we did a couple of workshops on this question. Could we create a convergence? And we call it a global climate convergence because climate is sort of the new emergency on the block. We have a lot of emergencies that have been going on for quite some time. The emergency of war, the emergency of the economy, the emergency of racial injustice and economic injustice and disparities. For many people, in fact, for most people, those are the most critical emergencies. The economic emergencies, the question of whether people will survive to live another day. Will they be able to feed their families? Will they have a job that enables them to put food on the table and to keep their home? Because once you lose your home and you're out on the street, you actually have a very high probability of dying within a matter of months. So for most people, out of necessity, that economic crisis is actually the lead crisis. So the concept in our mind is, can we unify these? Can people think beyond our particular areas of activism? We have traditions of activism within particular sectors. And those funds of knowledge are absolutely critical. The rich experience and the deep knowledge that we bring to each of those struggles are absolutely critical. So we must continue to do that work. But at the same time that we do our focused work on peace, or on drones, or on tar sands, or on biodiversity, can we also do the work of building a movement of movements? And we got together for the first time in Madison, and we thought we would bring together an activist from each of those movements, or as many as we could get together in that setting. So we had a woman, Sherry Mitchell, who's an activist in the Penobscot Nation and very, very involved in Idle No More and in a variety of fronts of struggle and lines of resistance, who's also an attorney, a very amazing woman. She came to sort of discuss the indigenous perspective. We had Sherry Honkala coming to discuss the perspective of the Poor People's Economic Human Rights Campaign, which is essentially a campaign of poor people and homeless and jobless, largely people of color. We had Richard Monhay, who is a labor leader and also an immigrant rights leader, discussing this question, could labor be involved, and or a segment of labor, because most labor is still, very much inside the box, but paying the ultimate price for staying there as the labor movement continues to be crushed. There was a question, is there hope to bring in organized labor, and particularly to bring in immigrants as a part of this. And we also had the Civil Liberties Defense Center, and Lauren Regan, I don't know if people here are connected with the Civil Liberties Defense Center, but everybody who's been arrested or considers getting arrested needs to know about the Civil Liberties Defense Center. They do free defense. They do pro bono work. Their motto is, we've got your back, just do the right thing. Their purpose is to be there to provide the legal defense, which they do beautifully, and they're tucked in the Northwest in Eugene, Oregon, but they advise and they will also train lawyers all over the country. So Lauren was there, who does defense for everybody from all of those movements who gets arrested. So from many points of view, never having spoken to each other about this question, we posed the question, are we ready to come together? Because for those who've been working on bridging movements, it has been very hard work to do. I must say, as someone, as someone who came out of healthcare and healthcare organizing, and then democracy organizing around the Clean Elections Law, and then peace organizing and environmental organizing, I found myself movement hopping and feeling like, wow, all of these are absolutely critical. We're not going to get out of here alive unless we achieve all of these ends. And then for quite some time I was puzzling about, so how do we connect? There's a lot of energy, and you put us together, the numbers add up. 1 in every 2 Americans is in poverty now, according to the Census Bureau, either in poverty or low income. That's a lot of unhappy campers right now. 40 million students are in debt with no way to get out, because the Department of Labor tells us 9 out of 10 jobs coming online in the next decade are low wage, do not require a college degree, will not pay college wages, therefore do not provide you the money to pay back your college loans. And in fact, half of those jobs do not require a high school degree and don't pay high school wages. So we got a lot of people who are really struggling economically, who are struggling with debt. 1 out of every 3 African Americans, males, are basically held hostage by the prison industrial complex. You add up these numbers and voila, we are at critical mass. The name of the game is not to have to persuade people. We're told, you're told, I'm told, we're all told all the time that we are the lunatic fringe. Nobody agrees with us because people are not turning out, in mass numbers at our demonstrations, that, we're up against the wall. We're all alone. Nobody understands us. That's why they have to keep us away from the microphone, because the minute we get to the microphone and you get an instant online viewer poll, you find out actually everybody agrees with us. And they are ready to mobilize. They just need a game plan, and they need to know that it's possible. I'm hopping around here a little bit because I want to be sure to touch on a couple subjects, but I also wanted to thank very much the Green Shadow Cabinet and the members of the Green Shadow Cabinet who are here. In particular, Steve Brayman, who is our Secretary of the EPA in the Green Shadow Cabinet, which is a shadow government. We are a shadow government to be able to debunk and rebut the kind of nonsense that is coming out of both political parties, the political establishment, Congress and the White House, and David Swanson, who is our Secretary of Peace. So I want to just give them a big thank you. And the Shadow Cabinet is intended to do exactly that. It's called the Green Shadow Cabinet, but it's actually not the Green Party. I always have to explain because it sounds like it is, but it's actually nonpartisan. It's intended to be green in the sense of being alternative and being sustainable and being non-corporate and non-corporate controlled. But the purpose of the Green Shadow Cabinet is to show that we are not in the dark here. It's not rocket science. We have no lack of alternatives. There is a game plan. There is a blueprint for how we can do this right. And every time that the White House comes out with its latest, ridiculous statement, whatever it is, we have a prompt, not only a rebuttal, but we trump it with a statement for how we can be doing this right, how we can have a policy that recognizes immigrant rights, that legalizes the immigrant members of our communities who are part of the fabric of our communities and our economy. We can do this right. We don't need a free trade agreement, which is actually a corporate trade agreement. That's what's driving the immigration problem and destabilizing economies in the global south. There are ways that we can fix this. And in my experience, it's people are afraid to stand up because they don't know there's something to stand up for, and because we don't have kind of the organizational infrastructure right now. But it's not rocket science to create it. So I want to plant in your mind this idea of convergence, that it's not sacrificing any of the momentum in the peace movement, for example, or in the climate movement to merge our movements. Because I don't know a real climate activist out there who doesn't understand that we must have peace if we're ever going to solve the climate problem. You just can't solve it. Yes, and I will applaud you for your efforts to bring that peace. I think we all know that the Defense Department and war departments around the world are the biggest cause of climate emissions and greenhouse gas emissions world over. So there's simply no physical way that we are going to solve the climate problem unless we also solve the war problem. And they all go together. We cannot solve, likewise, we cannot solve the economic problem unless we also solve the climate problem. But they all solve each other, and I want to put that on the table right now just so you all have it fresh in our minds that we can fix this. There is a convergent solution. We call it a Green New Deal. It's just shorthand to say that we can create an emergency solution that puts everybody back to work, creates 20 million good wage, secure jobs right now that green the economy, our energy, our food system, our public transportation, does ecosystem restoration at the same time that we meet human needs. They go together. You don't have to sacrifice one for the other. And we're told it's got to be a choice between the environment or the economy. It's exactly the opposite. We can't fix the economy unless we're also taking care of the environment. It's not rocket science. We're going to have all day to continue discussing this. The main thing is just for you to know that you are leading the way. I think the peace movement is, it just has the moral fiber that we need right now. And I have so much respect for people who've been out there on the cutting edge of fighting the good fight peacefully, to demilitarize, to end the drones, to dismantle our bases and bring them home, and have a real defense department, not an offense department, which is what we have right now. As David was saying last night, our foreign policy, which is essentially a trigger-happy foreign policy, which is on a hair trigger. It resorts to the use of force at every opportunity and does a great favor to the weapons industry, the war industry, which it's highly influenced by. Our foreign policy is highly influenced as well by the oil industry. It's no surprise that we're, quote, intervening for human rights in Iraq, over and over again, but we're not intervening for human rights, other places around the world where it's very urgently needed, like in Saudi Arabia, for example, or in Bahrain. We are, as Martin Luther King said, we are the greatest purveyor of violence world over, and we not only do violence to other communities and other countries, we do violence to ourselves. We create the basis for resentment and hatred, and we have essentially ignited the world by scattering weapons all over the place. So it's not rocket science how to fix this. We need to change our foreign policy. We need to go back to the drawing boards on our foreign policy and make it a foreign policy not based on war and militarism, land grabs and oil grabs. We need a foreign policy that is based on international law and human rights. And I want to thank everybody here for your incredible trailblazing work that has stood up for that. But I want you to know that the reinforcements are coming. This is a big wake-up moment. It's certainly within the climate movement. It is a really radicalizing moment right now within climate. And coming up, the flyer that was passed around in New York City on September 19th through 21st, we are having a New York City climate convergence. There is a People's Climate March taking place on Sunday the 21st, and the occasion for this is a meeting, a closed-door meeting at the UN called by Ban Ki-moon to supposedly energize this very corrupted UN process to deal with the climate crisis. Under this UN process, the so-called COP process, or Conference of Parties, our rate of carbon emissions has actually doubled. It has succeeded in doing nothing. Now it has given the green seal of approval to nuclear power, to geoengineering, to coal plants that supposedly sequester carbon, to fracking and natural gas. I mean, it has really become, a tool of the, of the predatory corporate state. So the purpose is to hold a counter conference, and there will be a march. But importantly, before the march, we're holding a convergence for people, planet, and peace over profit. That is our motto to bring us together. It's a convergence not only for the climate, but for people, planet, and peace, because we can't do one without the other. It requires a deep system fix. There's no way we are going to fix one of those problems while the neoliberal agenda rages on in all the others. It will never allow it. We need a systemic and peaceful revolution. We have the numbers to do it. Come to New York if you can. There will be, the peace movement will be strongly represented. In fact, there's a mini summit for peace and nuclear disarmament that is taking place within the convergence. There will be indigenous participation, big time. We actually have labor, international labor is coming, and there is a wing of the labor movement finally, which is really standing up, not just for their own job security, but recognizing that there is no job security unless there is also a peaceful and green economy. They are looking for an emergency just transition. So we're going to have international labor there as well. Young people will be there and may have their own convergence within our convergence. It will be a very exciting day, and it will be a jump start to a process that must go on for the rest of our lives. If we are to have lives, we must have this convergence going on, because the minute we stand up together, there will be no going back. Together we are unstoppable. We can change this breaking point that we have reached, a breaking point for democracy, peace, etc. We can turn the breaking point into the tipping point that we need now to take back our democracy and the peaceful, just, green future that is within our reach. Thank you so very much for making it happen.